What is up, guys? Stu here. So firstly, I can't not address the thumbnail. It's Thor, okay? I thought I'd go get a hammer and I'd look a bit like Thor in the thumbnail, but all I could really find was this little mallet, so I ended up just looking like Kev the Builder that's come around to fix your sink. Quite a bit away from Chris Hemsworth. But it's done now. I don't have any other options for thumbnail, so I'm sticking with it. Kind of forced to. Anyway, this week, Thor Ragnarok, the latest in the MCU, dropped in UK cinemas. US are going to wait a week. Motherfucker. Let's talk about that shit. So, Thor Ragnarok, it is the latest film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It is the third Thor film. And in the continuing trend of Marvel taking very good indie sort of directors and lobbing them into their films and just getting a spicy, fresh new flavour in there. I don't know what the fuck that was. Let's carry on from that swiftly. They've this time decided to hire Taika Waititi to direct here, and you guys know I fucking love Taika Waititi. I don't think it's possible to not love Taika Waititi. So I was excited for this one. I'm a fan of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I mean, it's had its ups and downs, but I would consider myself a fan of it, and I'm a big fan of Taika Waititi, who hasn't had any downs and had only ups. There is a joke in here somewhere. I'm not going to make it. I'll leave that for you guys to make. So I sat my buddy down, watched it with my eyeballs, and I've got to say, I think I'm disappointed, but I still really, really enjoyed it. So it's a weird one here. I've got a whole lot of thoughts to get through on this one. Let's just dive straight into it. So this one has a somewhat bonkers storyline for various different reasons. So I'm going to try and keep it as streamlined as I can, so as not to spoil anything. So I'll just say it's about Thor, and then he's on Asgard, and then someone bad's like, no, let's just kind of destroy everything, and he's got to stop that. And we've got Chris Hemsworth returning again as Thor. I've always enjoyed him as Thor, but I don't know, in his standalone films, he's never really blown me away. But here, this is the first time I've really, felt for the character of Thor, and I'm like, this is just a lot. He's fun. He's having a fun time. Chris Hemsworth is clearly coming at this with a much more comedic style to his performance than he has done previously, and I do think it actually really works here. But there's loads of other new people in the cast here. We've got Jeff fucking Goldblum in here, who, side note, is probably my favourite part of the film. He is amazing, but that is no shock here because it's Jeff fucking Goldblum. But also Cate Blanchett's in the film. You guys know my thoughts on Cate Blanchett, and yes, she's a goddess. And I thought she was really good as a villain, despite the fact that her character, I don't know, it sort of starts off like this really promising, crazy, fun, weird, odd villain in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and then it somewhat gets sidetracked from the halfway point of the film. I get into that stuff in a bit, but yeah, I thought she did do a really good job as Hela the villain in here. I do think, though, that there are perhaps a few kind of weak links in the cast. Not weak links in that they're bad, but there's a couple of people that stood out to me. I was like, okay, what's going on here? And I'm talking about Tessa Thompson here. I think it's a rad character. I do think she does a good job overall, and I enjoyed watching the character on screen. But she does this accent, which, well, I'm not sure what it is. Every time she spoke anything to Thor or any of the other characters in the film, I was like, where are you from? This doesn't make sense. It was a bit jarring to me, and I don't think she was that great in the film. Oh, I can already feel people getting their pitchforks ready because everyone loves her. She was fun. And also, there are a couple of amazing little cameos in the film. One cameo towards the beginning, I was like, is that really who I think it is? And then they stood up, and it was. And I was like, I'm happy. The film can end now. I'm happy. So yeah, I've really got no problems with the performances here. Everyone's clearly having much more fun with the characters that they've been growing up with in the cinematic universe at this point, and it is nice to see a refreshing change of pace there. But that carries over to the kind of overall direction, tone, and feel of the film here. Waititi's got a incredibly distinguishable sense of comedy and tone, and I wasn't quite sure how it would mix here. It's one of the main things I was interested to see how it would go in here, and I think overall it does really work. It is a straight up comedy film. It is only really interested in making you laugh and just giving you a fun time, and I do definitely think it does succeed in that overall. I have to admit, it did take a little bit to get going for me. The first sort of half hour of this film, the first act, I was enjoying, but it wasn't completely clicking with me in terms of this as a Thor film and as a Taika Waititi weird, bonkers, crazy comedy. But there's a point in the film, and I'm pretty sure it's the exact point where you meet Jeff Goldblum, where it all clicked, and I was having a really fantastic time there. This is without a doubt the funniest Marvel film we've had yet. And it's probably one of the funniest films of the year. I was consistently laughing out loud, as was everyone else in the cinema, so it definitely nailed that side of things. I do, however, feel like that's kind of limited to a smaller portion of the film than I'd have liked. It's definitely the middle of this film where I was enjoying myself the most and where I think the comedy was flowing as naturally, well, not really naturally because that's not what Taika Waititi's going for, but as effectively as I wanted it to. Because the first act and the final act kind of lose something, and those are the points in the film where I'm not entirely sure Taika Waititi's style and vision synced up completely with whatever Marvel wanted from this film. And it feels like certain sequences and moments would have been better if it didn't have Marvel breathing down Taika Waititi's neck. Like, there are certain backgrounds and sets, green screen moments, which look like, I feel like they're intentionally supposed to look a little bit cheesy and corny and hammy, but when it's injected into such a big budget Marvel film, it just kind of comes off as, I guess, poor special effects. Like, there are certain moments where the green screen's incredibly obvious and it was a little bit jarring, and I didn't actually feel like these characters were in some of the environments they're supposed to be in, and that might have worked if it was really going for this big kind of terrible 80s hammy cheesy style where the sets are very clearly fake and props aren't real. I do want to stress that this isn't something that broke the film for me, but there are certain points where I can't help but feel like the two visions are at odds with each other, and that's also something that comes into the storyline of this one as well. On the whole, I'm a big fan of the story in this one, and I do like that it sort of just isn't afraid to jump through different shit. It goes to all loads of different places in this film. It's sort of like a weird kind of road trip film in that sense. But there are moments where it has to kind of tie into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and it has to sort of touch on some of these staples of the superhero film in the cinematic universe at this point, which feel somewhat underdeveloped to me. And I think it suffers a little bit from the typical Marvel problem of a villain, which I didn't really give a shit about. I mean, at first, for the first half of the film, I was on board with her. I really loved what Cate Blanchett was doing. I loved the comedy that she was bringing to it, and I thought it all worked really well. But I found that when you got past the half point of the film, to me, it felt like she got sidetracked a little bit. I don't know, I wouldn't say it really fucked the character up, and I don't think she was necessarily a terrible villain, but I couldn't help but feel like I wanted a little bit more from her at the end, and I don't think her character went the ways that I feel like it should have gone. And that leads into one of my other kind of bigger problems with the film. And it's something I didn't really want to admit, but when I thought about it at the end, and when we were in the final climax of the film, I really didn't really give a shit what was going to happen to them, to be honest. I didn't really care about the fate of Asgard. I was like, yeah, cool, blow it up. I don't really give a shit. And I know that's not going to be the case for everyone. I know a lot of people that were completely on board with all the characters and everything happening in this film, but we got to the final fight of this film. I didn't really care if the bad guys won, which I think is a big problem in a superhero film. And I do think that's one of the things which, regardless of the style that Taika Waititi is coming at from here, I think it definitely wholeheartedly would have benefited from a fight sequence which I cared about who won or lost in it. But then on the other side of things, Taika Waititi's direction completely saves that from being a big movie-breaking thing. Because I think in any other Marvel Cinematic Universe film, if there had been a big fight sequence I didn't give a shit about, and if they had just sort of sidetracked the big villain boss in the end and I didn't really care about certain aspects, I would have been like, that was shit. I didn't really get what I wanted out of this film. But this film had such a specific and unique and refreshing tone that I didn't really think that all that stuff broke the film, and I actually think it was a really enjoyable time overall despite those things. I do think it's probably one of Taika Waititi's weakest films. I think all of his other filmography are probably better for me. I would rather go and watch those, but I think it's one of the stronger Marvel films, so I guess that kind of says it all here. It has some genuinely hilarious moments, and side note, the character of Korg the Rockman is one of the best things that's ever happened to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, as is Jeff Goldblum's character, so those two things alone are worth going to see this film for if you enjoy having any fun whatsoever. I do think I enjoyed Spider-Man and Guardians 2 more than this one, which is a little bit of a surprise for me considering how much I just fucking adore Taika Waititi's work before this. But hey ho, shit happens. I'm going to go see it again and hopefully enjoy it more for that. And I don't think it's going to get boring on future watches. It's probably the most rewatchable Marvel film, actually. So I'm going to go ahead and give it a very low 4 stars. I thought about giving this one a high 3 stars, but as I thought about it, I've warmed to it a little bit more. So yeah, I'm happy with the 4 stars on this one. But what about you guys? Have you seen Thor Ragnarok yet? I know you will have if you're in the UK, because what are you doing if you haven't? It's a fucking new Taika Waititi film with... what are you doing? But yeah, if you've seen it, let me know in the comments below. I'd love to know what you thought about the new injection of Taika Waititi's very clear, obvious comedy style into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's crazy. It's a crazy film. So yeah, let's talk about it in the comments below. That would be amazing. And as usual, if you like this review and you want to see me talk about more shit, please consider clicking subscribe. That would make you not a terrible person. But until next time, stay beautiful, mother truckers.